Right. Hello, everyone. Dashian Miller here from Warrior Concepts with another Warriors Whiteboard Wednesday. So hopefully you'll get a lot out of this one. Anyway, so what we're covering today, this week, is advanced striking angles, right? If you remember, if you've been following along with our Whiteboard Wednesday series for a while, way back, I did one on 4 variables. I'll cover those in just a minute, but just a quick overview here, right? We're going to stick to the big picture, right? There's so many different ways that we could come at this, right? I picked 2, and we might mention a third one, but definitely 2, right? And so as a for instance, right, we're not going to be covering something that I expect from my second dons, which is precision, right? Which means that the strike that I choose or the striking angle that I use or whatever is dictated by the position of the point that I'm trying to strike, right? So again, if you're one of those folks that, it's just all about hitting as fast and as hard as you can, and I get it, there's a time for that, right? Like in those oh shit moments, right? But if you're not about controlling things, if you're like the one guy that posted on one of the videos, I don't know, a week or 2 ago, that looking at power lines and balance lines and attacking Q-show or knocking the thumb knuckles together or whatever, that's just a bunch of BS, right? Then this is not for you, okay? This is for that small percentage of folks who want to cross over from just being entertained by a bunch of moves or learning a bunch of moves to understanding the mindset of a tactician, of a strategist, right? How do we go about doing this to, one, make our job as easy as possible, his job as difficult as possible, and of course it's combat, right? But we want to minimize the amount of wear and tear on us in the process. Okay. All right. So that being said, let's take a look at something here, right? A bunch of episodes ago. I mean, I lost count, but I think we're somewhere in the 60s, right? As far as episodes, because we do one a week. Anyway, one of the first ones, we covered something that had to do with like how many different ways can you throw a strike, okay? So if you can find that one, that'd be great, right? But what we looked at was 4 variables, okay? 4 variables in delivering a strike, okay? And when we combine those 4, what we end up with is 81 different ways to throw any given fist or type of kick or whatever, okay? So we'll take a look at these very, very quickly, right? So variable number 1, and these are in no particular order, right? But variable number 1 is level, okay? So we're either throwing a high punch, right? Well, I'm just going to stick to punches, right? We're punching mid-body, right? Or where are we going? Right, we're going low, okay? We've got range, okay? So we're either close range, God help you, right? You're at mid-range, or you're at long range. And again, this is an abbreviation because there is a long range and there's a very close range, right? That's actually pretty cool to operate in, right? The third one is delivery method. All right, so what we have here is a lead. Some people call it a jab, but in Ninpo Taijutsu, not that we can't use jabs, but a lead punch should have the same kind of oomph behind it as any other, or as a lead punch should have the same kind of power behind it as any other strike, right? Because it's the body weight behind the strike, not just how fast or how hard you can throw the arm, right? So we have leads, we have crosses. Again, not the same as a boxer's cross, right? We're not crossing the body, right? We're leading with one side and striking with the other side, right? But everything still moves. The body weight in action and the movement of the body, that line is the line that the strike is on, right? Okay. Otherwise, you don't have body weight behind the strike, okay? And then the other one is this lunge, right? If you've been in this art for a while, then you know a ski, right? TSUKI means to pierce or thrust, right? So you're stepping all the way through, right? Chasing them down, that kind of thing. And then the fourth one that we covered, right, is angle. Okay, angle of attack, right? So with angles, we have straight or piercing, right? So straight down the line, right? We have hooking. Not that we do hooks, but what that means is we're moving from the outside in, okay? And then we have what I call clubbing. That's not the same bars on Saturday night, okay? Clubbing, where we're going from the inside out, right? Like a lot of your uke and the guys and things like that, right? So obviously what we're working on today is this, but we're going to take this to a whole different level. And so just take care of this, get this out of here, right? So hopefully that was a quick catch up. It was a review for those of you who have done it before, and it was enticing enough for somebody to go back and look at a 40 to 60 minute training on these four variables, right? And how we come up with 81 out of those four variables, right? How we come up with 81 different ways to throw any given strike that you have, regardless of whether it's a fudoken, shito, elbow, whatever. It's a cool thing, right? Anyway, so let me tell you a quick story before we move into this, right? Bunch of years ago, I was still in high school, right? Had a friend who had a pool table in his basement. Parents had a finished basement, right? If you've ever been in a house like that, right? Basement's finished. It's kind of like a family room, party room kind of thing, right? There's a pool table, right? So I go over to his house and started shooting pool. Well, he was really good. And I mean, so good that like me, I'm lining things up, making sure that the white ball hits the yellow ball or the purple ball or whatever it is that I'm doing, right? And I'm always trying to like make sure that things kind of line up, hopefully, right? But then I was decent at geometry, and at least that I understood angles, right? But the first thing I had to get my head wrapped around was how do you get two things that are shaped like that, right, to make contact in a way that instead of this one going directly away from it, this one can hit this one so that it goes on different angles, right? Okay, so I had to learn that, like, because I'm not working with a point, and I'm not working with a square, right? Where on the arc does this one have to touch this one on the arc, right? Sensei, what the hell does this have to do with striking? Stay with me, humor the old guy for a moment, okay? Right? I'm 60. I got some stories. Anyway, right? So first thing, again, I had to get my head wrapped around that, and things started working, right? That was cool, right? Because if the pocket was over here, you guys can see that, right? So if they're lined up like this, how the hell am I putting it over here? Well, I started to get fairly decent at, getting those angles to work, right? I was even fairly decent at trying to figure out like the angles off of bumpers where I could hit this so that it would basically ricochet and get me as close as possible so that hopefully it would go into some other pocket, right? I could work those angles, right? But my friend, right, Mike was able to make this ball and this ball do things that like just through my head, right? And now over the years, I've been watching this and kind of paying attention to it. I got really good at what in America we call pool, right? But it wasn't until I went to visit my friends in Liverpool and Scotland and stuff like that, right, where they play snooker, that I realized, holy crap, my head has to change this, because you go for pool is done on a very small table compared to a snooker table, right? It's just way longer, way wider, right? You've got longer distances to carry, all that kind of stuff, right? So, but it still kind of worked. I needed to readjust some things, right? But what my friend Mike was able to do was to get this ball, right, the cue ball, the white ball, right, to spin in a way that when it touched this one, this spin would transfer to this one and cause some really cool stuff to happen, right? Because if I just hit this ball, right, and I'm not paying attention to where on it that I hit it, it's going to transfer to this no matter what I do, right? But if I'm not careful, let's say this is the 8 ball, the black ball, right, in pool, okay? And I hit this, when it hits this one, obviously that one's going to go, right? We understand cause and effect, right? But if the way I hit this one causes this one to chase it, what ends up happening? This may go in, but this one also might go in, right? And then that's called a scratch, and then it's the other guy's turn, right? But my friend was able to like get this ball to hit this and stop dead. He was able to get it to hit it and then kind of roll a little bit. He was able to get it to hit it and then like spin backwards. But it wasn't just that. He was able to do whatever to this ball to get this ball to do weird stuff, like hooking around and stuff like that, right? It's called English, right? I don't know why, right? Don't ask, okay? Right? I don't know why, because I couldn't speak the language and I thought I knew English, right? So, but he could get this ball to like hook and turn and really cool stuff, right? What the hell does that have to do with striking? It's the control of the outcome, okay? Because any caveman can just slug, right? Hit a point, aim for the head, aim for the chest, whatever, okay? So this is one of the things. Now, remember, when I got involved in this martial art, in ninjutsu, I had already been through at least a dozen other martial arts, okay? So I knew different styles and I knew different approaches to things, but a lot of them had to do with like how you positioned or how you psyched him out or whatever, right? One of the first lessons I got in this art is in how to put a guy on the ground where you want it. And they made a reference to pool or billiards, okay? Because in pool or billiards, right, unless you're just knocking things around with your friends or you're just a kid just trying to like figure out the game, right, you're supposed to call your shots. So again, these two things are lined up here, and I'm going to put the colored or the striped ball or whatever it is, right, in the side pocket. I have to call the side pocket, okay? No slop, right? Just because it goes in doesn't necessarily mean that you get the point for it, right? Because it didn't go in the pocket that you called. Even if you're playing slop the whole game, you still have to call the 8-ball, right? You have to call that final ball, again, in pool, right? Billiards is a different animal, right? But what they were pointing to was your ability to call your shot. Now, that didn't mean you had to tell him, like Billy Jack, right? Way back, for those of you that are old like me, right? You remember that movie in the late 60s, early 70s, where this Vietnam vet comes out, right? He tells somebody he's going to take his right foot and stick it up against the left side of your head, and it'll be so fast you won't be able to, that kind of thing, right? Not like that, right? But I'm able to put him where I need him to be, right? If I can do that, then I know where the next shot's going to happen. In the old days, right, if I was using taijutsu to take this person down, right, like in the Koto school, right, the end of the all the end of all the Shoden no Maki, at least, right, the first level scroll kata in the Koto school, right, all end in a position where you can draw your sword and finish him before he can take the ground. And if you're not armed, you can deliver a kick or a punch or whatever to cause him to not be able to take ukemi, right? So that's a cool thing, especially if you're dealing with somebody who's a trained killer, okay? Like I did when I was a military policeman, like these ancient warriors did, right? It wasn't just two guys that were just pissed at each other, throwing a bunch of shit around, and then somebody got bragging rights because he gave up, okay? There was no giving up, right? There was somebody wasn't going home, right? So what I want to look at is this idea of being able to control either where they go completely, right, or where they'll go with each strike. Okay, and this is a cool thing, right? And you do the same thing with Kyusho. You can do the same thing when you're attacking the Kyusho. The people call them pressure points. Got a whole different Whiteboard Wednesday on that too, right? But if you come at it at different angles, you get different physiological responses in the connecting joints and how the body responds to the pain and stuff like that. And you can control them just like using a joystick, right? In this case, we're going to do it with striking, okay? And I'm going to use a couple of models so we can stay as specific as possible. But what I want you to do, just like using a kata, you use that as the springboard to try this with lots of other things, okay? So in some cases, I'm going to be talking about like using a knife hand 3 different ways. In other instances, using maybe a, whatever, right? But it's not about the fist. It's not about the strike. It's about understanding kind of how to match these things up. Kyusho still come into play. Kyusho as in weak points of the body and the body's physiological response to those kind of things. But again, here's the disclaimer for the people that don't think that kata work in a fight. Well, they're right and not, right? Or that these moves that we're doing, well, that wouldn't work against me because I'm, okay, whatever, right? What we're looking at is the reality that, look, if you don't put this stuff in, it's never coming out when you need it, okay? But the reality also is just because we put these lessons in doesn't mean we won't end up in a situation where we don't have time, space, or distance or whatever, right, for taijutsu. Okay, we do the best to put things in so to give ourselves the greatest advantage. But if we're in a really bad oh shit moment, you do what you need to do and call it a day, right? Okay, so all right, so anyway, so let's do this, right? So we're talking about angles, right? So I'm going to look at, again, 2 angles today, right? One, right? And again, no particular order, right? One, we're going to look at it is we're going to combine, right, angling with level. Okay. Remember high, middle, low, that kind of thing, right? And the second one is we're going to combine the angle of the strike with kuzushi. Bless you. Okay, kuzushi, balance breaking. Okay, kuzushi. Right. So again, we're going to look at it 2 different ways. Okay, I'm going to keep it fairly big. Right. So I'm also the examples that I'm going to give you, right, are going to look at a couple of big pieces from different techniques. Right. So we're going to look at it from the perspective of uke nagashi. Right. Some people call it blocking. Whole other episode on blocking. Right. We're going to look at it from the perspective of different types of strikes that we have from the different ryuha, right? Which stick to 3, okay? And what that does to move him and control his ability to move next or whatever, right? Which is everything that we do should be taking something away from him, okay? One of the biggest mistakes people make when they're doing, let's say, a wrist reversal or a throw or whatever, is their body's in motion, but his isn't. If he's not in motion, it doesn't matter if you broke his balance half a second ago. If you move and he's not moving, he's regaining his balance and he's going to kick your ass in a second. Okay? So every time we move, they need to move. Right? But every time we strike them or move, we should be taking something away from them. Okay? Either mentally, confusion, decision-making, that kind of thing. We should be taking away options, or mechanically, we should be taking away their ability to move and or get at us. Okay? And that's as simple as it can be made, right? And then the third one we're going to take a look at is, I'll give you an example for like delivering a shito, 3 different ways and what that does to that person and how you can use a strike to feed the next one. But this really plays into, in our curriculum, for my guys that are going from or going around 3rd, 4th degree black belt. Okay, so if you're converting that to Bujinkan ranking based on what Hatsumi Sensei taught me a long time ago, right? The stuff that I require from my guys at 2nd dan, he looks at around 8th or 9th dan. Okay, well, why you so? He and I've had this discussion. This would take too long. Okay, so how do we compute that, right? So we're looking at 10th dan or above for some of these things where you're actually controlling his options, you're controlling all kinds of things. These things are embedded in the kata, but it's one thing to be able to do it when you're doing kata, and another thing to be able to do it on the fly when you need to do it. Okay, so let's get rid of this stuff again too. All right, so let's take a look at our examples. All right, okay. I'm gonna keep writing in black because this is gonna look like a football locker room coach's board or whatever. So I'll write the stuff out. I'll draw some figures and all that in black, and then I'll use some other colors so we can delineate between these different lines. Okay. Again, if you're one of these people that don't want to hear anything about power lines, balance lines, anything like that, or the science behind things where you can fight smarter, not harder kind of thing. If that's not you, if it's all about speed and just reckless abandon, hit, strike first, strike hard, Cobra Kai, hoo-ha, whatever, this is not for you, okay? So just as long as we're clear with that, all right? So let's do this, all right? So we'll start off with level, okay? And actually, this is going to play into the first example we're going to do is actually combining striking, or looking at the 3 types of striking, right? 3 types of strikes. And again, this is on the basic side of things, right? Don't take this out. We're going to take some very general statements, but use them as models so we can understand going beyond just hitting someone. Striking 101, basic striking is, can you make a fist? Do you have good fist confidence? That means that when you strike, nothing breaks or folds, right? You have good, decent targeting, right? Do you know how, how extended your arm should be so that you get maximum power output, so that you still have follow through, but you don't have blowback where you lose some of that power, right? So there's a lot of basics. I'm just skipping right over, right? I'm just going to talk about the angle and what that does, okay? So we're looking at 3 types of striking, right? All of these are designed, obviously, on the front end to knock him back or down, both preferably, okay? But what we're going to look at is how they also minimize his ability to move well, okay? And that's the important part, right? So there are 3 types, right? So if you know the Sanshin, right, Chino Kata, Chino Waza, right, teaches at the very beginning, there's a pendulum strike. You know what a pendulum is, right? Something hangs like this and swings like this. This is what our strike is doing, swinging this way, okay? Right? Usually a pendulum is a big old blade and stuff, but, we'll get them either way, right? So for non-ninjutsu, non-bujinkan, budo taijutsu, ninpo taijutsu, whatever people, what are some alternative words for this kind of, what we're looking at out here, right, is it's a lifting strike. On impact, it's a lifting strike, right? So uppercut. Okay. There's I'm sure there's a bunch of other names out there, but the most common is, right, slip it, boom, doing this uppercut, right, where you cause things to lift to knock the guy back, right? Now, an uppercut in boxing is designed to hit the breadbasket right around the solar plexus, knock the wind out of the guy, right? Hopefully you don't break the xiphoid process, so you're not impaling his aorta or anything like that, right? It can be dangerous, but if you're hitting down here in what we call gorin, right, in a stomach wall, right, it'll cause the guy to just black out and drop, okay? Or we're going for the knockout, right, coming up under here. But we have ways to strike this way where we're coming in. It could be against the trunk, it could be against the head, it could be against an arm or a leg, okay? So the idea with this is this type of strike lifts him, okay? So let me do my famous drawings, right? That's nose for those of you who are new to this. Okay. I don't know why I made his legs weak already, like he was already nervous dealing with you. Okay. So here's this guy, right? Okay. And so strike one, right? It doesn't matter where he comes in, right? I'm actually going to come in this way. Okay. So this one, what it does is it's not just about here on the body. Okay. What does this do? It straightens his legs and lifts him up. It gets him off his feet. We're stable when we're flat on our feet. Knees are slightly bent, carrying the weight low, legs are carrying the torso, okay? But we're lifting him up off his feet. Here's a cool thing. The human body doesn't move very well when it's not planted, okay? If you can get somebody up even on one foot, okay, like when they're kicking or whatever, it's really, really difficult. I'm not going to say impossible, but it's really difficult for that person to move until both feet get on the ground. Okay. It's the same thing with leaping, right? The reason we don't bound when we leap, we're not gazelle, right? The reason we don't bound with our leaping is the amount of time that you're in the air, you can't do a whole lot. So it's a lateral shift. You pick your feet up and shift. So you're barely clearing whatever it is that you're going over. Might there be times that you have to bound? Sure, but it probably would be safer if you did a dive roll over it, right? So your body stays streamlined and you don't do this, where you're going to land in the same place you took off from, okay? Just a thought. All right, so with this first one, right, this pendulum or uppercutting kind of strike lifts the body up and back, straightens out the legs, and makes it difficult for him to maneuver, to step, to kick, those kind of things. Remember what I said earlier? Every time we touch him, we're taking something away from him. In this case, we're taking away mobility. Okay? We're going to do that a lot. Okay? All right. So, second one, right? And this is just a common thing that everybody gets, right? Is this idea, misspelled that, right? Ski, right? Ski, right? Ski, right? You can say it this way if you want. That's how I have it in my white belt notes. Ski, right? Because I didn't get that, right? Okay. Ski, right? It's this piercing, right? Ski actually is a spearman's term that crossed over to sword that then crossed over to what we're doing. So we're actually not thinking about striking. We're actually thinking about ramming through it. Okay, just blowing a hole right through it. Okay, ski is piercing or thrusting. That doesn't mean that these things can't be piercing or thrusting, because later, again, remember I said I was going to make this big picture, because you can combine a lot of these things together. We're not going there. Okay, so ski. What does ski do? Okay, ski. Let me use a different color here. Right, ski pushes, rams. Okay, I'm just going to use the word pushes. Hopefully you can see this, right? So it pushes, right? So if I've got this strike, and I'm going to show you something, I'll do one here from the Koto Ryu, right? There's a technique, and a lot of people kind of change it up. There's lots of variations and whatnot. But one of the variations for a kata called yokoto that I have, yokoto means to scoop up and throw, or to restrict and throw. Different translations, right? So what we're doing is we're jamming this guy up, kicking, right? And then we step through, and most people will do things that just like shove him or whatever, okay? Or they'll come in at the head this way, but whatever, okay? So if we strike up, okay, but we strike up and back like this one, okay? Yes, we have a good chance of knocking the guy out, right? But what ends up happening is if the angle is too hard this way, the head is going to pull the shoulders, and if it doesn't knock the guy out, he can stumble back and catch himself. Yes, you can deliver things while he's falling off balance. But here's a cool thing, right? In our Mod 1 training, right, very beginner stuff, right, we have people strike straight up. Straight up. See what that does? It causes the skull to pivot on the atlas, the top vertebrae, right, this pivot point, right, this way, right? It's what an uppercut does, okay? We just have them do it this way. So, but most students want to push, okay? It requires more work. We need to shut this guy down quickly, okay? So when I pop up this way, the back of my skull smacks into this area right here. This is a knockout. And if you do it hard enough with enough force, you can lift the skull off the atlas. So please be careful in training, right? But that's, again, this lifting kind of thing, right? In the Koto school, delivering a shakoken can be done this way, right? This palm strike, claw hand kind of thing, right? So we're striking this way. But I was taught a variation of that where we strike this way, right? Where this catches this fovea here or here, and then these catch sinuses between the eyes or the eyeballs themselves this way. But the action is not lifting. It's not pendulum or rising. It's straight in because of the physiological response that we have. If this thing is coming up, and even subconsciously I detect this, right? My physiological response is to pull away this way, right? Play games with your training partners, right? To understand, you have to kind of be your own Katos and stuff. If you know the Pink Panther reference there. Anyway, right? But if something comes straight in, right? What you're taking advantage of is the fact that the human body moves 180 degrees away from danger. So even if I don't hit him, if I come in straight, we move this way. If I come in, I could come in straight, but if I come up too high, see, the body's going to move this away, so I've got this arching kind of thing going on. But if I come in down here, right, the body's going to pull the thing that it detects to be in danger back this way. But what I really want to do is I want to strike it. So when I do that, I get the skull, right? So the strike comes in this way, right? It's going to take up this amount of space. When I do that, the skull's going to move exactly this way, right? So what does that mean? that means that the skull moves on the atlas backwards. When that happens, the spine starts locking up. The neck locks up all the way down to T8, T9, right? So what ends up happening is this kind of thing. When I do ski to the center body, right here at this mastoid process, it's a kill shot, right? Right? Everybody wants to do like defenses against face punches and all that kind of stuff. In the old days, in our scrolls, the scrolls say the uke ski, okay? But they weren't racing for pink slips. They weren't racing for pink slips. And besides that, if you ever watched an MMA fight, boxing match, street fight, locker room, whatever, with fists, right? How many times do the fighters hit each other in the head before somebody goes down? You get the rare one where it's a one-shot knockout and it just kind of landed just right. But the skull can take a lot, okay? And the hand starts getting broken up if you're not striking properly because of all these bony ridges. We've covered that in the past, right? But these shots that we're defending against in this art are kill shots. Okay, just like when somebody grabs you, they're not just wrapping the flesh bag where you can rotate your bones inside that. They're grabbing in a way, see what happened here and here? They're grabbing in a way that locks the joints so you can't move. So your first thing that you can't see in a kata or demonstration is how you have to unlock that bone connection that they're seizing, right? Cool stuff. Anyway, so if I come in straight this way, what does that do? Well, striking this way, right, takes the natural arch out of the back and drives this way, moves the guy off his heels. You know that stuff that nobody believes, like in karate or Saturday morning kung fu movies and stuff. Guy gets hit, right? And his feet come up in the air. Oh, it's not how it works in a fight. Well, that's because you never saw anybody hit properly like that, so that the whole mid back moved in a straight line like a wall. Okay? Again, the legs can't adjust to that, right? As a matter of fact, the torso is now beyond the legs, and that's what when you do it this in light training and your partner is stumbling backwards and then they fall down, right? That's what's happening. The legs are trying to race to catch up to get back underneath the body, and eventually it doesn't work. And if it does, now you get somebody even more pissed off that's coming back at you, okay? So these things are not just designed for hitting somebody. They're designed to hit in a way that controls how his body responds to the strike, how his body operates during the impact, right? And what his body's able to do in its attempt to recover itself because of the impact. Okay? And for those who don't believe this stuff works, it's not a belief thing, right? You can believe or not believe anything that you want, right? You can not believe that gravity works, but if I trip you, I guess we'll both find out. But even if you slammed into the ground, you could still believe that gravity doesn't work, right? One of the funniest things I heard in the last year was these flat earthers talking about the earth being flat, but they got pissed off because people were making fun of them. And one of them said, you know, people got on planes from all across the globe and flew halfway around the world to this meeting. Wait, they flew halfway around the world for a flat earth meeting? Interesting. Okay. So, but I don't have arguments with these people, because whether or not they believe that this works or whether or not they got distracted by the fact that I have a gut or I'm 60 or bald has no bearing on the fact that they don't believe it works, because they're just making a value judgment. Doesn't probably also means that they can't do it themselves. Okay. I love that, because that's one less person I have to worry about. Okay. And you should not have to worry about them either. Okay. Not that they're not dangerous. Okay. Because that's a whole other lesson. Make sure you know more about the person who's coming at you than they know about you. Okay. All right. So we have pendulum striking, right? That lift. We have piercing. What do you think the last one is? Okay. Dropping or descending strikes. Whoops. I promised I'd write in black. We look good in black, right? So dropping or descending strikes. Okay. That doesn't necessarily mean this way, but it could, right? Because I'm looking at this body as the example, what we have right, are these diagonal strikes, right? They're still piercing, all these things, right? They still push through, right? This one just straight lateral. This one's a lifting, right? This one down, okay? Big thing in the kotoryu, right? So when we're striking, right? Let's see. Probably should have done that with a different color so everything matches up. It's the artist in me, right? So if I strike low in his gut with one of these and hit back, where's his gut going to go? It's going to go this way. That's fine. I'm going to take his ass off his feet, increase the likelihood he's going to fall down, right? But if I strike this way, now I don't just take his butt or his butt off his feet, right? I also cause things to drop. So that causes this, right? His knees are bent. He's down. What this does is exactly the opposite that this one does. Remember what I said? This one lifts him up off his feet, and we don't steer really well when we're up off our feet, when we're on our toes, because legs are too straight, right? The same is true when we strike down and we cause him to drop. Now the distance between his hip and the ground is shorter than his leg length, which is why we also learn to move from deeply bent knees. So we get comfortable moving around in there, right? I have a lot of people, when we do demonstrations, they'll say, you look like an octopus when you're moving around like that. That doesn't look normal, okay? But we get used to moving in that small space. The problem is that everybody wants to move around like Hatsumi Sensei and the master teachers, who way better than me, and they were much older, and I'm learning about it now, right? Hips, knees, all that, arthritis, all those kind of things, right? It feels much more comfortable when we're walking on straighter legs, but you got teens, 20-somethings, 30-somethings moving around like you're 60, 70, 80 years old. Why? Because you're mimicking a 60, 70, or 80-year-old person, okay? And it's not as hard, okay? But if we drop this, right, it locks them in place. They can't move so well, and then the next shot can take them down if that doesn't take them down themselves, right? So looking on a plane this way, right, not an airplane, right, on this kind of a plane, right in front of me, I can lift this guy. I can knock him straight away from me, right, assuming that I didn't wing him. If I hit this way, see, again, I have to pick two because of time, right? If I wing the guy or I hit him left or right of center, okay? We have a defensive combat handgun training coming up, and we'll put a silhouette target up, and everybody gets a kill zone target. It's a legal piece of paper. It's a long piece of paper, and has a 4-inch by 11-inch black bar on it, and that gets positioned where the top of that bar is right here, and it goes straight down. That's the kill zone, because the spine's behind it, the heart's behind it, the aorta's behind it. That will stop a human body just like that, okay? It doesn't mean you can't go left or right, pierce the lungs or whatever, but it's good. It's not best. So I want my people to have 4-inch shot groups at normal combat distance on the kill zone, right? So same thing with this, right? If you wing him and he's going to rotate, that can cause some stagger, that can straighten out one leg, that can add some things, right? There's times that you do want to do that to him, okay? But when I do that, I'm going to strike, so I'm descending or lifting. So when he rotates, I'm still not giving him that ability with his legs, okay? So again, this is assuming I'm hitting center line, right? I'm attacking the spinal column, which is the target for everything, okay? In Japan, the spine is known as the pillar of life and the pillar of health. You maintain yours, take his away, okay? All right, so this is one example. Hopefully we'll get to all three of them here. Dropped it. Okay, so moving on. Elevator music for your day. Okay. So Okay. So that was working with the three basic types of striking, right? So we have this pendulum striking from the Sanshin, right? We've got this descending downward diagonal, right? Naname kind of strike, right? That's big in the Kotoryu. It's not that it's not in other ones, right? It's just very, very prevalent there. And then we've got this general classical tsuki, right? Piercing straight through, okay? So, I think I can fit these things in there, okay? So let's start with an example from the Kyonapo, okay? From the Kyonapo, right? So 3 types of uke nagash. Again, some people call it blocking. Uke nagash is not just blocking. Blocking is one type, and it's actually, there's a whole different word for that, but in the Bujinkan, we just kind of lump all these things together. I have a whole Whiteboard Wednesday breaking this thing out, okay? So, all right, there's lots of ways, right? Kukishinden has theirs. Tagagi Yoshin has specializations, Kotori, all that kind of stuff, right? What I'm going to do is I'm going to take a look at, and I don't know if these things are still being taught. That I don't follow everybody else around. No, I'm not the competitive guy, and I'm not the Mutual Admiration Society member either, right? Like I'm a member of the Shidoshi Kai. Or I get it. We can all be friends and all that, but my approach to this is based on military and real life stuff, dealing with killers and all that kind of stuff. So all this stuff had to run through a filter of, does this stuff still work as is in today's world? Some people say yes, and then they keep doing classical stuff, but they never train against a right cross, right? And some people say no, and they just throw it all away and go off doing something else. Whatever. Everybody's going to do them. We need to look at this. But in my journey way back, okay, we learned uke nagash, and then we learned uke nagash with 3 angles. So now we're going to look at Joe Cool Jackwagon. Make him big enough here, right? Right. Let's see, how should I draw this? Actually, I'm not gonna. Yeah, I'll draw him out here. He's gonna be like the guy in the background, right? When you're looking at a video or whatever, right? Got the one arm up, ready to go, right? And then we're gonna just bring his arm out here, right? Because I maybe that's not a good picture. just I just drew an eggplant on the end of the guy's shoulder, right? So we'll just make his arm. We'll just keep it like that, okay? So we have to try to pretend it's this way because this is the center line. So I'll demonstrate this way what I'm going to convey on here, okay? So remember those 3 levels, right? That we dealt with on the body. We're going to look at the same thing on the arm, okay? So just uke nagash, right? There's several different ways to do uke nagash, right? I'm going to take a look at forearm. I'm going to take a look at the ulna, and I'm going to take a look at this swatting counter strike, like snapping somebody in the ass with a towel kind of thing, right? Using the knuckles this way, okay? So if we go back and lift this way, I'm not blocking the guy like those schools, because if there's a certain range, if I go beyond that or I'm on the wrong part of his arm, we are both equally exposed. Just because his arm is this way and my arm is this way doesn't mean there isn't an opening, okay? So a lot of schools will go and hit it harder, or they'll do things to take that away, or you put armor in there or whatever, right? What we want to do is catch somebody, right? The idea is catching, okay? Right? So nagashi, right? Flowing with, receiving, that kind of thing, right? Not receiving, but it's a neutralizing kind of thing. Sometimes it's stopping, but that's a different ending, right? Uke, receiving, right? It's like catching. It's not quite dori, but it's like that, right? To catch, to seize, right? To receive, to take in, right? He now belongs to you, okay? So this one, right? Well, let's go back with our original colors, right? What I have here, right? So we have one that lifts the arm, right? Up and out. Again, you've got to see this angle, right? So if the fist, put a thumb up here, okay. Got this fist coming at you, right? So now it's on the other side, right? And I strike this way or I catch it this way, what I'm doing is I'm lifting the arm from being straight at your target, not just up, not just up. I'm moving it up and out. I'm moving it diagonally up and out, right? So the fist is coming in, it's being moved like this, okay? If you do this on your own and you don't move from the wrong muscles, if you move your arm from right here up and out, right? What you'll feel is that the head of the humerus locks up in the AC joint, okay? It catches on the back of this scapular, what do you call it? Clavicle, right? There's this extension back here with a cup, right? And then there's these two bands across that hold the ulna in place right here, right? It's hitting its range of motion. But again, I'm not just knocking it away. We'll talk about that one in a minute, right? What I'm doing is I'm moving it up and out, which takes his weight off the back side edge of his feet. If he's busy, remember I said the second thing, we're going to be combining this with Kazushi, balance breaking, okay? If I do that, certain muscles in his body fire so he doesn't stumble or fall down, so he can stay in the fight. It only happens for like quarter of a second, but it's a quarter of a second, okay? So have you ever seen kata that look like this, right? 1, 2, right? I have to catch that while he's off balance or while he's stuck, right? So we have this one, okay? Second one, right? It's kind of like that piercing because it's lateral, right? So now I'm striking straight into this, okay? Ignore the angle of the brown. I'm striking straight into it this way, okay? So arms coming in this way, the strike hits it like this, okay? So now fist is coming in, arm gets moved this way, okay? It's being moved sideways. It's still doing the same thing at the shoulder, but instead of lifting them to where their body's going to be up and back with a lean to it, right? You see this? Here, when I do this, see the lean that happens to it, right? This goes all the way down to my lumbar, okay? But when I do this, I'm going off the side edge of my foot on one foot and the inside edge of the other foot, right? So I'm moving. One is making my body move like this. One's making my body move one's making my body move like this, okay? I know. What's the big deal? Control's the big deal. If I'm in between two parked cars, or if I'm in a hallway, or my friend, my wife, whatever is standing next to me, and I do something just because it's my favorite, it's the only thing I know, whatever, and I end up punching them in the face with his fist, or I knock him in a direction where he just falls up against a car, pushes himself off, and he's back into the fight, well, then I am what is affectionately known in one of my teacher's dojos as being an accomplice to my own ass kicking, okay? We take things away, and then you never give it back. You never give back something you took, right? I see people breaking people's balance to move in for a throw, and then when they turn to do the throw, they do it in a way that gives him back what they just took, and then they wonder why the throw doesn't work, okay? Well, stop giving him things back. He didn't loan you his body. You took his body. Stop acting like it's a loan, okay? All right, third one, what color do we use, right? So third one is now, right, we're going to have to pretend the arm's lower, right? So now that strike, I don't like my angles, goes this way, okay? So if you know Hicho no Kata, I'm going to need to change the camera angle here a little bit and the distance, right? So if you know Hicho no Kata, or sometimes Kano Kata in the Sanshin is done this way, right? Where you strike this way and then you move to come in, right? Okay. So same thing with doing the Kyonopo Hicho no Kata, right? This way, right? Striking this way. I'm not swinging this. That's doing the same thing this other one is doing, kind of, but it's also a pendulum. If the guy's striking low and I do this to his arm, his shoulder is going to be able to ride that off. A lot of people block just because it says the kata says to do it. What the kata doesn't say, because paper was expensive and ink was, you had to make your own damn ink, right? What the kata doesn't say is how to do it. It might tell you where to touch, but what's your striking angle? How deep do you go? What is it supposed to be doing to his shoulder joint and therefore his spine and therefore his feet? Okay? Not just what are you doing, what is that there for? Everybody focuses on being a technician, right? Being able to do the moves. But way fewer people want to look into the tactics so they can be a tactician. Why those moves now? And fewer yet are strategists where they can see the big picture, where they don't end up in jail. They don't end up, right? They can maneuver things, right? Because tactics and techniques are chosen based on the strategy, not the other way around. Well, my strategy is just to win. Okay, fair enough. Then do whatever the hell you want. Okay? But don't forget that just because that little foray's over doesn't mean that you won't lose friends and family because they were traumatized because you let the monster out. Don't be surprised because you end up going to jail because you exceeded the self-defense doctrine, right? So you won one battle, and now you're Bubba's best friend, and not in a good way, okay? So we need to think about this, right? And that's why ninja were hired by samurai families, because of the way we think, not just because of the way we do, okay? All right. If they were able to solve the problem based on their own thinking and logic and rules and all that kind of stuff, they'd never hire the ninja. And if you're outnumbered, if you're the weaker, smaller force or whatever, and you think you're going to follow the rules and take on a bigger force, well, what about the Spartans, man? The 300, they all held off the Persians for, a week. And then what happened? They all fucking died. Okay? I'm not saying you can't hold them off. But unless you're fighting differently, this is not going to go well. Long term, not going to go well. Okay? All right. So with this one, what we're doing when we strike this way is the fist is coming in, and now it's being knocked not just laterally offline, but down at an angle. So now the person is off their feet, off the side of their foot, at the front side of the foot. Okay? So you see what we just did? We broke the balance off the feet. Let's make it this way. Let's make a foot. All right. Man, I can't draw today. Okay? So what we look at that one. Anyway, all right. So what we did was, right? The first one took him off his foot that way. The second one took him off his feet that way. The third one takes him off his feet here. That all determines what he can and can't do next. Okay? Because he has to catch his balance in a given direction. He'll be stiffening up or immobilizing certain parts of his body for you. There's all kinds of things going on in here. Okay? If I'm throwing the guy or want to strike him, or I need him to fall over here, right? If I just need him to fall over here, probably okay with all of them. But it can get a little weird from here, okay? That's where I'm going to stop, okay? So let's just very quickly take a look at this last one. And now all I need is an arm. Since none of you are in the dojo to volunteer a body part, I have to do it with my crappy drawing, okay? So let's just make... Okay. He's overworked his biceps. Anyway, let's thin out the wrist here a little bit. Good. So we're going to look at this laterally this way, right? So now the strike is coming in. So the first one we took a look at working the body on its plane this way. So we can lift, go through, drop, right? The second one, we took a look at the arm, but what we looked at is doing to the arm what we did to the body, right? So the arm was moved up and out, straight away, or down and away. Yes? Okay. In this one, I want to look at what I do to the arm makes the body do something different. It's not about the arm. I'm striking the arm, but I'm striking the arm to do something to the body. Okay. So we have Kihon and kihon no kihon, where you receive and then come in to strike the arm. Okay? Bunch of different kata. Okay? All kata have different angles as well. I know they're not all written. Okay? But first one, okay? Let's see. Let's do chunk. Okay. So first one, it's a knife hand. Okay. So the first thing, right? We're moving away, right? Okay, nagash. I'm sorry, naname, right? So moving away at that angle, we're going to receive the arm. I don't care how you receive the arm. I don't care if it's up and out, down and out, side, whatever. We're receiving it, and I'm going to move across, and I'm going to chop the arm sideways. Okay. Make a little bullseye right there. We're just moving straight through. Okay. What that does is moves him and knocks him in that direction. Okay. The second one, make this quick, because I'm running out of time. All right. Second one, right? We're going to do a push strike. So I catch it and then I strike through at this point, but forward and away. So not up. All these are going through the arm, right? But this one is going that way. So what ends up happening is he punches, and when I strike this point right here, or anywhere in here, right? And I strike it, I'm striking it at an angle from here, just outside the shoulder. And what that does is makes his arm do this. See what just happened? He moved this way. Now he's moving this. Okay. They open him up differently. They put him in a different place based on where you are, sweep, follow up, whatever. Okay. And the third one is a hook. Okay. Does this sound familiar at all? Piercing, clubbing, hooking. Okay. The hooking one, oops, I need orange. Hooking one is coming this way. And we're going to aim in here. Okay. So now I catch it and I do this. Okay. Not straight through it. I'm striking back. See if I can't wreck my place, right? So what ends up happening is, let's move the watch here. The shuto catches here, right? It hits this way. Okay. It's actually going to be the opposite way, but I can't do that with my own arms. Okay. This hangs up on it and it pulls the arm, which pulls the shoulder, which pulls him. Okay. So he punches, right? You uke in the gash, and then you strike it in the way that causes a pull. Okay. So in this case, there is like a ramming, breaking, conventional angle. There's a pushing angle and there's a pulling angle. Okay. Again, it's a place to start, but we're way beyond just striking to strike. But what if I don't have time to think about that? Or what if I don't think about it? What if I don't have time to do that? Then do what the hell you have time for and do what you think. But again, this is, I say this a lot. Martial arts is not a spectator sport, even though people have turned it into it. Okay. It's an experiential development, personal development exercise, right? So until you experience it, you're not going to get it, right? You can theorize it, but you're not going to understand it, okay? Until you've done it again and again and again and again to where you get past form and you in the middle of an action, in the middle of sparring, randori, whatever, you think about, like, if this guy's really a plunger kind of puncher, then great, I'm going to strike him because he's already overextended. That's going to help. If this guy's a quick hit and pull back, this is going to work better because he's helping me, right? If this guy's just out there and there's a moment where that's going to be locked out, sometimes it's about damaging the arm. Sometimes it's not about the arm at all. Sometimes it's about what I'm doing with his body, okay, and where things end up being moved to, okay? So again, if you've been with me for a while, you know how this works, right? Whiteboard Wednesday is a precursor to things we're going to be doing during our Friday virtual training, right? There's the link, okay? So if you want to make it for that, that's what you want to do more of this stuff or see it in physical form, that's what we're going to be working on with my upper, intermediate, and advanced guys this Friday. Okay, so you just click on that link, go over to the webpage. There's two options over there. There are these big black buttons that, say you can sign up. Class is $4.99, right? And I get very little of that because service fees just remove it, right? So for anybody complaining that it's $5, go back to YouTube, right? You'll find lots of stuff, okay? Or below those, there are these blue links that will take you to our Ninpo Masterclass information page, where you can get in on not only our Friday classes, but our Tuesday classes as well. And you can just get those things all the time. Recordings are included. Plus, if you're in that Ninpo Masterclass, I know the price of that is not the same as, 4 times $4.99 or whatever, but you're getting a whole bunch of extra programs. You're getting access to other training, all that kind of stuff as well. You can check that stuff out. If it works for you, great. I'll see you on the other side. If not, then I'll see you next week on our next episode of Warriors Whiteboard Wednesday. See you guys. Have a great rest of your week. Train hard.